Sonny Gray's been like the story of camp so far. Not just because look, the Cardinals signed a guy that finished what second or third in the Cy Young voting last year, and really really good. It seems just as a reader of the Post Dispatch STL today, it seems to me that his impact already or his presence already is more about the pitching. How important, in your view, is that he came in and immediately took on that leadership role that Adam Wainwright was kind of his thing for a long time. But it doesn't seem like Sonny Gray tiptoed into it. He kind of went right at it. What do you? So tell us all about that. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I asked him about that. I was like, obviously he's moved teams before. He's been on, for a guy who'd never been for a free agent before, he's sure been around. Like Oakland, New York, Cincinnati, and Minnesota. And I was like, well, you're not new to trying to make a first impression or joining a new team. So how do you go about that? What have you learned about how best to do that? And he goes, that he has learned the best way to do it is to be himself. And this is who he is. Full front, straight ahead, charging, going to call out what he wants to do in a bullpen, going to dictate what he wants to do, going to react to hitters, going to go. I mean, like the other day from during the live batting practice, Wilson Contreras was catching him, and Sonny goes, no, like he gets the pitch call, and he says this, right? He wouldn't do it in a game, but he says this. He goes, no, I like where your head's at. No, I'm there with you, but no, we're not. No, hard, yeah, okay, hard breaking ball, and he just announces it. Like he just announced it. The hitter's there, and he's like, all right, dude, fine. I guess you're going to go hard breaking ball. But then so he goes, like where your head's at, soft breaking ball, I'm right there with you, but that's not what we're doing today. No, not today. And I mean, this is a kind of, I don't know if I've seen that before. Like I've seen guys go through their bullpens and dictate, shout out, the counts, right, in situations like a right-handed batter, and then Gray does that too. But I'm not sure that I've seen him have dialogue with the catcher during live batting practice where it's both supportive and also changing it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like he was like, yeah, you're doing the right thing, Wilson. I'm there with you. I get it. But that's not what we're doing, man. No, I don't want to do that today. Let's try something else. Let's do this. And he's like showing his thought process. And he's showing it in a supportive way when he wants to do something different. It just was really, and that's him. People who I'm not sure I was ready for all of it, but I've been told, he's very demonstrative in bullpens. He's very direct. He's very chatty, very talkative. But this is something, and you're right, it has. I mean, I watched the first bullpen, and I wrote a story about it, just how it just captivated the camp, and nothing's changed.
See, and they after last season, any change that raises the level of positive energy is a really good thing, and it seems like there's a lot of that going on in camp now.
Yeah,
I tend to be a cynic, so I know what cynics would say. Well, that kind of talk, everyone says that about every spring training. Not this is different because I don't have to tell Derrick Goold this, but that team last year, it was such a mess, and the morale was so bad, and the splinters were so bad, and it was just a one long downer. So when you see this clear burst of positive energy and people trying to make a difference, I mean that's a good thing. It gets things off to a good start. Yeah, then you're going to have to go win some games, but everyone knows that as well.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see how it manifests. It was interesting because these teams talk about like, well, we'll get our energy from the youth, and then the Cardinals have talked about, well, we didn't, we had a little bit too much youth and needed the leadership, and it's like, well, here's a guy who's leading and bringing the energy, but in a way that is both constructive and enthusiastic. Like that's stuff that like usually happens, if it does happen, in the clubhouse, behind closed doors, out of sight, in different ways. And Sonny's just not like that. He is very much who he is at all times. There are times where he'll be in the clubhouse sitting there reading a book, and It feels like he's reading it intensely. You don't want to interrupt him, but it's just he is going to be who he is, and the Cardinals are going to benefit from the fact that who he is open, honest, sometimes willing to talk to you when you aren't asking to be talked to. Well, not like as a media member, but as like a teammate, because he's just so vocal. And I think you're right. I mean, it's got to manifest in wins, but I think it's an interesting thing where, these personalities are starting to come out. And, I think Sonny's had something to do with this. But Wilson Contreras is just filled with confidence. Like he's just, I think part of it is his age, part of it is his second year with the Cardinals, part of it is that second half last year. But I think some of it too is Sonny Gray, and you're my guy, man. He'll tell him that, you're my guy, and here we go. And Wilson is like, yeah, I am his guy. I'm all these guys. Watch me play. And it's just a fascinating thing. I don't know how far the radius is for this. I don't know if Sonny Gray reaches third base and first base or reaches the middle infield. I don't know, but he certainly reaches catcher and the pitchers.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And, and there's more of that coming because you and I, first of all, you and I know Lance Lynn very well and how he's wired. And
yeah.
He's going to make a difference in terms of the dynamic, the internal dynamic. And I know from following him and also watching a lot of Baltimore Orioles games last summer, Kyle Gibson is one of those difference makers as well. Those young pitchers.
He very much is.
Those young Orioles pitchers revered him. He was the guy they went to. He was the guy that they took their questions to. He was the guy they went to when they were down and losing confidence. I mean, he was like having a coach on that team. And, I was saying earlier, I guess I've become a Kyle Gibson honk, but it just amuses me that, in a way, the way that I think he's still, underestimated about what he can do. Yeah. And a lot of it, people can't get past the 4.73 ERA. But if you look at the fielding independent ERA, it was much better and it was totally respectable. But man, I don't. He is a very he's not out in front and loud and all that stuff. But to me, he's a true quality type of leader. So that's another guy. Hey, what about?
I think underestimate him at your own. I mean, it might be cool on Twitter. We were talking about that earlier. It might be fun to impress your friends by how tough you can be about a guy in his late 30s who throws a sinker ball in a four-seam age. Fine, and I'm actually writing a little bit about that tomorrow, touching on it a little bit in this project I've been working on. But yeah, underestimate him at your own peril.
Plus,
you know what? Let's just be honest. Say that about all Mizzou guys, right? Just underestimate Mizzou guys at your own peril.
And I think too, he was one of the many major league starters last year that embraced the sweeper, and it worked very, very well for him. It kind of made him a much better pitcher. Now he's got even more experience throwing it. So anyway, hey, I want to get back to something, Derrick, and I know you're busy. I don't want to keep you much longer. But I meant to ask you this before but you brought it up again in a way. You alluded to it. I know Nolan Arenado has commented on this, and I know Miles Miklasz has commented on this, and I don't think they were being negative. They were just telling it as they saw it. I mean, maybe the generational gap with the Cardinals. Last year there's too many young guys. I'm not sure exactly what they were doing, but when I look at the so-called young guys, they all seem to be pretty level-headed individuals. I'm not saying across the board, but so I'm not sure. What from your observation, what are they alluding to? What if there was a problem? I mean, what was the nature of the problem? Is it just a generational gap or something else? And I'm not suggesting anything nefarious. I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if it was a problem. It just was a thing. And I don't quite, I kind of, and I've asked both of them, to okay, what exactly are you trying to say here? And I kind of have to mix them with my own observations, right? Okay. Last year's team was very much had, how to put it, like the big personalities on the team were mostly young players, right? Like Wilson became that. Adam Wainwright wasn't around much there early on, and then when he was really trying to figure it out. He was not pitching in any way that he recognized and had to find a way to get outs and wanted to help yank the team back from the doldrums and then wanted to chase 200, all that stuff. So he had a lot going on. And so like the prominent personalities in the team were the pepper grinder duo of Andrew Kisner and Lars Nootbaar, and Brendan Donovan was a big part of that. And I think, something that Arenado's touched on, and I think Miles Miklasz kind of glanced on, was this notion that, like, okay, when there's a lot of young guys, and then also the young guys are kind of out front, but they haven't ever gone through a full season, they need direction. And Lars and Donovan and Gorman, Walker and Wynn, they had not gone through the test of a full season. And, Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado are many things, and they're leaders by example. And Paul Goldschmidt does more behind closed doors than he lets on, right? But I had a long talk with him toward the end of last season about how even the coaching staff challenged him. I don't know if you recall this story, and said, you need to be more demonstrative.
Yes, I do. I do recall that. Mm-hmm.
And Goldschmidt was like, okay, but I'm not comfortable as a personality. I'm not the guy who's going to be negative. I'm the guy who's going to be positive. I'm happy to reach out and be more demonstrative and be more like present by being positive. Like, you did that good thing that helped us win it. But I'm not the guy. He didn't feel comfortable being, like a watchman along the along the watchtower saying, "Hey guys, we're going to have a kangaroo court," or "Hey, that's not how you do things," or "Hey, that's not." So, but somebody has to. And if that goes to the young guys, then they don't know, right? So does it go to no one? Does it go to the manager, which is what we saw happen? So I think that's what they're touching on, is like they needed more clear and present veterans who were more vocal, and they got those guys. They definitely got those guys. And Goldschmidt has shifted a bit. He was more in touch with teammates this winter. Like, he's really kind of like, well, he's like, all right, I am, forward facing of this team now. There's not a Yadier Molina. There's not a Adam Wainwright. There's not an Albert Pujols. He's one of the veteran guys on here. But he brought up to us that he felt it was important to have Matt Carpenter come back and help in that. Somebody who could go, hey, look, this is how the Cardinals do things, because his career is tied to the Cardinals. His success is tied to the Cardinals. His October experiences are tied to the Cardinals. And that's something that Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado can't say. And so when they're looking around and they're all sharing the same experience or the same time together as Cardinals, and it's the young guys that stand out, that is something that they felt like that was just a little bit off. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. It's like I know exactly what you're saying. You explained it well. And I think it's really good that Goldie, he doesn't have to publicize it, that he's done more, even behind the scenes. I think that's good. One more quickie for you.
You probably won't hear about it. I mean, I'll write about it, but he probably won't talk about it, so.
No, that's not his thing, to say the least, and that's okay. He's a classy guy. The one more thing, Tommy Edman, and I know you've written about him, and he's always a source of curiosity about how he's doing. Do you think, you're not a doctor, nor do you play one on the radio, but do you think there's a legitimate chance he'll be ready to go like full speed ahead by opening day?
I mean, that's that like the Dumb and Dumber line, right? So you're saying there's a chance,
right?
I mean, there's a chance. You got to see him swing. That's the thing. Is just kind of like got to see him swing. Got to see him swing, and where got to see him against live pitching. And when that happens, we'll tell you everything. If it happens with a few weeks to go, then okay, maybe they can pull this off. If it happens in the final week of spring, then no, then Dylan Carlson will be your center fielder.
Derrick Goold, thanks for all your hard work, man.
Yeah, you bet. I'm working on something for tomorrow that maybe is of interest, like going a little retro here with some stories on pitch grips, kind of like I did many, many years ago, which you, I think, saw me put together all those years ago with Ryan Franklin and stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Well, everything you write is of interest to me. So, but I'll look forward to this one as well. Thank you, buddy.
All right. Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
That's the great Derrick Goold here on 590, the Fan KFNS on the Bernie Show. By the way, I was going back to talking about the 85 Cardinals, and there's another thing about the 85 Cardinals, and then I'll shut up about it. But I was talking about, for people who just joined us, kind of the doom and gloom, the off season going into the regular season. Whitey Herzog, there people talking about him getting fired if they got off to a bad start, and people weren't all that thrilled with, if that's putting it lightly, with the trade that sent a bunch of players, including George Hendrick, to Pittsburgh for John Tudor, and he got off to a bad start. And on and on and on. Even though they got Jack Clark, there was a lot of skepticism about him. I mean, people were excited by the power potential, but really weren't sure what to think about some of the things in San Francisco. That he was a complainer. He was this. He was that. He was negative. That kind of thing. And then, of course, the Cardinals no longer had Bruce Sutter, who moved on to Atlanta as a free agent. And then, the bullpen's terrible, sky's falling, all that stuff. But other thing, too, Jim Hewer, real quick, and then we'll get out of here and take a break.
No, that's fine.
The one thing, too, that, is brought up constantly, and I understand it, the Cardinals have a tough schedule early on. And it's like, oh, man, if they get off to a bad start, what's going to happen? And almost like, predicting a bad start because of the difficulty of the schedule. So, so much is being made of it. And then that got me, I was checking my memory, and it's like, I'm pretty sure that 85 team got off to a rough start. And that was after, a lot of talk about the manager being in trouble and this and that and this and that. Bullpen being terrible.
Mm-hmm.
They lost their first 4 games. They lost 6 out of their first 8 games. They were 11-14 in their first 25, and even as late as like May the 19th, they were still under 500. And they ended up winning 101 games. And my point is, once again, I am not predicting the Cardinals of 2024 are going to win anything close to 101 games. That's not my point. My point is, like, people have already predetermined that things are going to be a certain way, and that's all there is to it. And that's why, again, in the immortal words of one of my idols, Earl Weaver, this ain't football. We play 162 here.
Yes.
So all this the sky is falling stuff, even before they play their first exhibition game. But all the sky is cracking and falling. They're going to be buried by the end of April. I'm making the point that even if they get off to a slow start, ain't nobody buried at the end of April or early May, especially in the NL Central. So come on, my friends, shake it off a little bit. The next thing I know, some of y'all are going to be like spending a bunch of money. You're going to build a bunker. It's like doom and gloom. And, we're headed for a nuclear summer. And it's just like, oh, I gotta build a shelter. I need a bunker. I got to get I got to stock up with water and non-perishable food items. Just everybody relax a little bit.
I'm with you.
I'm just having fun with it.
I like it, though.
I'm just having fun with it. I'm just saying. How about the Phillies a couple years ago? Remember? Oh, they're done.
Oh, they were done
Remember
in
that?
June. It's no chance.
How about the Braves?
Yeah.
Remember the Braves came to St. Louis? I think they were 500. It was pretty late. It was
mid-August, I think it was.
Yeah. They won the World Series. And again, I ain't saying Cardinals are as talented as that team. Not saying that. I'm talking about historical, recent history examples of, especially in this new playoff format where you got 12 teams making it, 6 from each league. You don't want to get off to a bad start. No one's trying to get off to a bad start. But you can recover. And again, I'm just not I'm just not sure where all this comes from. That if they are like a kind of a middling team where they're, 2 or 3 games, 4 games under 500 early on or whatever, then it's over. Have you taken a look around? Have you paid any attention to recent history? Have you noticed how much easier it is to make the playoffs? So you got a cushion to work with. And, like I said, when you play a tough early schedule, guess what? The schedule lightens up after that. That's good. So just hang in there early. You'll be all right. If you got a good team, it will surface.